The realm of one of the most elusive creatures of the sea, Kingdom of the Seahorse.
This is Channel 10, WMVS, Milwaukee Public Television.
Exercises, a few music courses, and finally, a little quiet time. Japan.
I first saw them perform 10 years ago. Their sheer power and energy has stayed in my memory ever since. I've come to this modest, respectable, out-of-the-way island. In the Middle Ages, Sado was a place of exile where they sent those who disagreed with the government. Now it's where the Kodos work and train, and they've invited me to join them for a day. They're putting me up in a ryokan, a traditional inn called the House of the Red Pear. It's run by the lady who grew up in it.
Yes.
Hello.
Michael Palin さんでイギリスから来たお客様。
Yes, Michael Palin. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Right, so well, let's go. Mama-san showed me up to my room. Into the woods.
Please.
Thank you. It's lovely. Thank you. Right. Yes. Lovely. That's a sort of like a dressing gown? Oh, I see. Like you're wearing. Yes. Yeah.
Howell jacket.
Jacket, I see. Very nice. Obi, which is a belt. Yes. Not quite sure how to put all this on. There it is. Lovely. Thank you.
This.
That's in there, right. Now, sleeping. Yes. Oh, I see. That puts that out. That futon. Yes. Do you put it out? Yes, I see. Yes, I think I'll lay it out. Good. Fine. Lovely. What else? Yes. Sit and write the diaries. Lovely. Very good. Thank you. Thank you. It's beautiful. It's all just so different. You know, I feel very, very clumsy and awkward, but I will learn. It's beautifully done. The ryokan is immaculate, like a newly finished doll's house. Everything has its place, even Mama-san's goldfish, which are fed every afternoon at 5 o'clock. Every morning at 5 o'clock, the Kodo apprentices begin the day with a 10-kilometre run. I've asked if I can train with them, and my bluff has been called. There are 10 of us altogether, and in deference to my great age, they've reduced the 10 kilometres to 9. On their return, they make a lot of noise, which welcomes the sun and keeps down local property values. This is where it all started, the old schoolhouse which Kodo bought in 1981. Here, a few carefully chosen apprentices spend a year in frugal, almost monastic conditions. They cook and clean for themselves. They may not drink or smoke. They have one shower and one stove between them. They're here to drum. The technique is based on the art of the traditional Japanese drum, the taigo. The word kodo means two things: heartbeat and children of the drum. The teaching emphasizes the need to play with the innocence and energy of a child. They drum for 90 minutes each morning and each afternoon, 6 days a week. It's like playing in the cup final twice a day. At the end of the year, only one or maybe two of these apprentices will be chosen to become full members of Kodo. Seiyu is 24. She's given up a job teaching English in Tokyo to attempt the near impossible.
The sounds of drumming becomes like together with my heartbreak. It's become
With your
like
heartbeat,
together.
yeah.
Yeah. At first, I have to like think, oh, okay, rhythm, and I have to raise my my arm more. I have to think at first.
Yeah.
Then, as I get used to, maybe 30 minutes or an hour, maybe sometimes it takes like 2 hours. But as I play taiko more, then I become a part of like taiko. This is really difficult to use my body as I want to. I can hit taiko. It's really easy. But when I try to make a good sound, it's so difficult. Really sometimes, really few times, but sometimes I can make a really good sound, then I feel so good.
In case you're thinking it's a youngster's game, this is Yoshikazu, one of the founders of Kodo. In 3 years, he'll be 50. Yoshikazu is one of the only 2 members of Kodo strong enough to play the hugely demanding big drum, O Daiko. At their new headquarters, the other virtuoso, Aichi Saito, is auditioning for a successor.
Hey, やってみましょう。どうぞ。はい。この辺、もうちょい、もうちょい。はい。もっとこっち、もっと左です。はい、そうです。で、この辺持って。そう。はい。リラックス。はい。はい、じゃあやってみましょう。はい。もっと強く、もっと。
More.
Power.
Yeah. We British are not brought up to make a noise. Brought up to be very quiet and
Come on.
retiring, so okay.
Good.
How do you do it?
Good. Great.
How long can you play this for?
Um,
Continuously?
15 minutes.
15 minutes. 15 seconds
Come.
is my limit. We'll come back later to that.
Back at the harbour, the fishing boats are in. Most of their catch seems to have gone straight to the house of the red pair.
Oh, say.
Thank you.
Seaweed.
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 Lovely.
Seaweed.
Yeah.
This name, Igoneri.
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 Igoneri. I'll try and remember. That's like Igonrone, but it's Igoneri.
Vegetable.
Well, that's tofu, is it? Bean curd. Yeah.
Shellfish. Shellfish.
Shellfish, yes.
Shellfish.
To accompany the shellfish and the seaweed, there is bream and squid and scallops, sea snails, abalone soy sauce and teriyaki of tuna stomach. Scarcely a denizen of the deep is unrepresented at Mama San's table. So, all served on quite different. Oh, magnificent, magnificent, absolutely wonderful. Yes, thank you. Thank you. This is the hot sake, is it? Thank you. Well, cheers. Bottoms up. See, I'm terribly nervous. I must tell you now, on camera, I'm terribly nervous. I'm going to do everything wrong. But isn't it beautiful? So all I've done is knock the sake over, that's all. Not a big deal. Bottoms up, and the bottom did go up. That's all. No giggling. Thank you. Now then. Try and get this meal back on the road. Look at that. Isn't that delightful? I'm going to have a little bit of this very succulent fish. My crash course in Japanese cuisine is just a golden memory next morning. This is modern Japan. Fast food for people on the move. Even out here in the country, a spotless train arrives at a spotless platform, spot on time. We're on our way south across Honshu, the largest of Japan's 3 main islands, from the rice plains of the northwest coast to the rice terraces in the mountain valleys. The journey to Tokyo surprises me. 2/3 of this crowded country still consists of woodland and forest. Tokyo, 4th largest city in the world, is another kind of forest. Dense, uncompromising, and overgrown. It's the first megacity on our route, and it's especially confusing if you're not Japanese. There is someone I know here who might help me make sense of it. She's a girl called Mayumi, who was Japan's first and most loyal Monty Python fan. Profit already. I've fixed a rendezvous at a city centre cafe. But first, I've got to find my way there, on my own. Well, almost on my own. The only trouble is that though we've exchanged many letters, Mayumi and I have never actually met. Mayumi? Are you Mayumi Nobetsu? You are?
Yeah.
Hello, nice to see you.
Hello.
I'm allowed to give you a quick kiss, is that? No. I don't do that in Japan too much. How are you?
Welcome.
Now, what is this? Oh, somebody told you I was coming.
Welcome to Tokyo.
Thank you. How are you doing?
Fine.
Well, it's very nice of you to do this crazy thing. It really is. But I thought we ought to meet after all this time.
I think so too.
Well, because then what is
20 years already.
20 years when you wrote me the first letter?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I started learning English. I just wrote, I am a Japanese.
Yes.
I am a girl. Like
Yeah.
that. And then you wrote me back.
I loved your
And
letters. I
everything
say
is
I'm
good.
English, I'm a boy. 20 years. I'd be a young lad of 32. You're probably a
Like
bit
you look like
disappointed.
this.
Oh, that is wonderful. That, during the long hair. Holy Grail,
Yeah,
isn't
Holy
it?
Grail.
Yeah,
Yes, you're in the Holy Grail.
yeah. Well, we got to meet after all this time.
Yeah,
that's
that's
really
right.
nice. You know, I've been trying to find my way around Tokyo, so that's why I thought it'd be rather nice if you could if you could show me around.
Sure.
All right. Leaving the corporate tower blocks and cold plazas behind, Mayumi and I head for the slightly shady street life of a working-class neighborhood called Asakusa.
This street looks like more gambling street.
Yes.
There's a stand for the newspapers of horse racing. This guy is selling horse race ticket.
Yeah.
And this gentleman here, I think he won something.
How much did he win? Can you ask him?
いくらぐらい勝ったんですか?
Excuse me, we're from England.
イギリスから来たんですけど、
A great gambling nation.
ギャンブルが好きな国民なんですけど、he spent only 1,000
He spent
yen.
1,000 yen.
これで
With
こ
this
の
ticket,
だから5000円な13でだから37万円
It means 370,000 yen he won.
On a 1,000 yen bet.
That's right.
Hey,
370.
good.
Yes.
Congratulations. Well, let's stick around. Back to your place. I feel a bit of a racing fever coming on, Mayumi.
Okay, why don't we try
Should we
horse
try?
racing here?
Hot
Hot
fit.
Fever's #1.
Yeah.
Or do you want to try 7 super license?
Super license, okay, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So number one
BBC,
and
very
7.
appropriate. Super
Super
license.
license.
Okay.
じゃあ1と7でお願いします。The number 7 is
I find horse race commentaries difficult enough to follow in English. In Japanese, it's totally impossible. For all I know, super license could have been carried off by extraterrestrials.
Oi Fini. We won!
We won? No, number 7. Really?
一番7番入ったんですか両方とも
Yeah.
17入って勝ったんだが私は7
We won. Number 7. Hey, well done. Well, there we are, you see. Nice look at that. Number 7. Yeah, that's it. All right.
Oh, the money.
Here we are. 126,000 yen. On, what, a 5,000 bet?
Right.
Yeah. So it's about 12 to 1. And the horse was called Super License, so, you know, there we are. We better not show this too much. We'll divide the winnings. A grand total of £845, 63 pence. The most I've ever won on a horse in my entire life. That's yours. And this is mine. We celebrate at one of Tokyo's oldest restaurants. For 190 years, undeterred by earthquakes and American bombing, the Dojo Nabe has served the people of Tokyo with something they could not get in quite the same way anywhere else. There we go. Thank you. Right. Yeah. Well, I've been places without chairs before. Never been anywhere without a table. News of my big win must have got about, for the owner of the restaurant himself, Mr. Watanabe, insists on joining us. Mr. Watanabe, what is it that you serve here? What's your speciality?
Dojo nabe.
Dojo nabe. Yeah.
Cooked loach on the pot.
Cooked loach. I've no idea what loach is. The loach is a freshwater fish which has two vital attractions for the Japanese. It aids both digestion and virility. Once selected, the lucky or unlucky loach are tipped into wooden tubs and served copious amounts of sake, the Japanese rice wine. They drink in the sake, they become full of sake.
Enjoy drinking.
They enjoy it, yes, all right. The loach get
then
pissed.
die.
The loach get very pissed, and then what happens? The tottering loach are then upended into a soup of largely secret ingredients. To complete the dining experience, each table is supplied with its own blast furnace. Look at that. It's like a small foundry on its own. So that's charcoal.
If you eat with the loach and the leek together, it's very healthy.
Yeah.
It's good for you.
Is this recipe been in use for
この作り
195
方
years?
はずっと195年変わってない。No change at all from the beginning of the restaurant.
Ah,
僕なんか I'm sixth generation ですけど
you're sixth generation of people who run this, so the
6代
Watanabe
目という
family.
ことで、渡辺家がずっと。That's a
Is your son
tradition.
going to do it as well?
多分 maybe I hope so he working at another company
Is he? Ah.
今 dishwasher
In cooking, he's a dishwasher, is he? Oh, starting at the top.
あそうそういいですねはい
Let's start now.
Mr. Watanabe's enthusiasm for loach borders on the obsessive. He even publishes a loach newsletter 4 times a year. Yeah, do you eat the whole fish? Bones and everything?
骨も全部。
これも関係ないか
Yes, and leeks on the top of it.
Yeah.
これどうぞそうそうペッパーつけてそうそうペッパーつけて
The whole fish goes in, really?
熱いよエッグ
Hot, hot. Very careful.
The leeks, the onions are very, very good with it.
こ
They're
のネ
really
ギがとっ
just,
ても風味があって、
just have that nice sort of clean taste.
とっても爽やかな味が。
They tell me the restaurant has a famous slogan. Oh, that's your slogan, yes. If you keep eating, you can't die. Because if you died, you wouldn't be able to eat. Right. Oh. This may look like an hallucination brought on by an overdose of loach, but it's actually Tokyo on a Sunday afternoon. A mile-long stretch of Yoyogi Park is closed to traffic and open to almost everything else. Or so it seems. In fact, it's all strangely clean and innocent. By dressing as English heavy metalers or Dutch punks or American rockers, these young Japanese can be outrageous and blame it on somebody else. It's an acceptable way of showing off in a country where showing off is not encouraged.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Shinkansen. This is the Hikari Super Express, bound for Hakata. We will be stopping at Shi-Yokohama, Nagoya, Kyoto, Shi-Osaka, Shi-Kobe.
It's time to leave Tokyo and Mayumi, my excellent host, and head south on the bullet train, accelerating fast until we're lapping the Tokyo suburbs at 2.5 miles a minute. The train will take us down to the southernmost island of Kyushu, from which there's a ferry for Korea. But we're almost 200 miles out of Tokyo before the featureless urban sprawl gives way to something like open countryside. Halfway there, we break the journey to look at a way of life which modern Japan has hardly touched. This is the Zen Buddhist temple of Butsuji. It's been a place of silence and meditation for 600 years. The immaculate grounds reflect the love of precision, order and formality which lie at the heart of Japanese culture. Seeing these Spartan surroundings makes me aware of how much clutter I carry with me. By the time I've climbed yet another flight of stairs, I'm ready to renounce all worldly goods, beginning with my suitcase. Later that afternoon, I'm summoned to meet the abbot, the Roshi. As I wait, I find my mind full of ignoble distractions, like, do they have chairs?
Yes. Welcome to Butsuji.
Thank you. Thank you very much for letting me come here.
Yeah. I'm an abbot of Butsuji.
Yes.
My name is Sokun. Please call me Sokun.
Sokun?
Yes.
I will indeed, Sokun. I know I'm only here for a very short time.
Yes.
But I hope I'll learn something.
Uh-huh. Yes.
Is it possible, Sokun, to say in a few words what the difference is between the Zen Buddhism that you practice here and more traditional Buddhism?
Yes, we mainly practice Zazen, Zen meditation. And not only by learning from books, but also practicing with our whole body, with body and mind. Under the unity of body and mind, we can attain our true nature. And from the morning till night, for 24 hours, each moment is the practice.
The most important part of the practice is meditation, to which I've been invited. It takes place in an old wood-beamed hall, the Zendo. The monks live here. Each one has a tatami mat 3.5 feet wide and 7 feet long. And that's about all. It's rather like the first day at school, watching everyone else and hoping not to make some terrible gaffe. When we're all sitting comfortably, nothing happens. Once I've accepted that nothing is going to happen, calm descends. All I have to do is be. After what seems hours, a bell indicates a short break in which tired limbs can be rearranged before the next session. Then, as calm is descending for a second time, something actually happens. Just as I'm wondering what it must be like to be hit so hard, I'm offered the chance to find out. He really can't do enough to make me comfortable. And in the true spirit of Zen, I thank him. I learn afterwards that this is the keisaku, the warning stick, a means of ensuring that meditation does not become an excuse for a quick nap.
You know, the monks should sit for over 15 hours a day when we practice the big session. I was troubled with the pain of legs during sitting, and I tried to become one with the pain. Does it make sense?
I think so.
Uh-huh.
You mean, don't fight it, don't see it as an enemy, see it as a friend.
Mm-hmm.
I shall bear that in mind, thank you.
I think that's the best way to overcome the difficulties. Yes.
As I am only here for one night, I think your experience might be able to help me here. What do you think that I shall learn in that time?
Pardon?
What will I be able to learn in that time from being here, do you think?
You?
Yes.
But this is your program. You must not ask me.
Oh, well. interviewing never was a Zen activity. The spirit of the past haunts Japanese life in the most surprising ways. For 200 years, Japan hid away from the world, and the Dutch were the only people allowed to trade with her. It isn't a dream, you know. I mean, you might think it's a dream. In fact, I almost thought it was a dream, but in fact, it is reality. Well, it's not actually reality, it's a fake. But see, I'm in Holland, but I'm also in Japan. It's all very zen. To celebrate this Dutch connection, a Nagasaki businessman has raised $2.5 billion to recreate 17th century Holland on the shores of the East China Sea. Most of the historic Dutch buildings, including the Royal Palace, are faithfully reproduced. But thanks to modern Japanese technology, the canals are self-cleaning and the merchants' houses are earthquake-proof. Four million Japanese come here every year to see what life in Europe is really like. This theme park with clogs on has rapidly become Japan's favourite honeymoon destination. It's odd, but this celebration of historic links with the foreigner seems to me to be the fantasy of a country ill at ease with the rest of the world. 99% of all Japanese were born and still live in Japan, a country with no minorities of any size. The Dutch village is a success because it enables the Japanese to be part of the wider world without ever having to leave home. The wider world has always come to Japan through Nagasaki. First, the Dutch came here. Then the British and Americans set up Japan's first railways, coal mines and shipyards here. And in 1945, the biggest bomb the world had ever known was dropped here. At 11 o'clock on a Wednesday morning, the equivalent of 22,000 tons of TNT exploded above this spot. More people were killed in this one blast than were killed in all the bombing raids on Britain throughout the Second World War. More than 50 years later, the Japanese make a point of not forgetting. School parties come to lay streamers made up of paper birds, a token of respect for the dead. They sing songs of peace, a few hundred yards from all that remains of a Catholic cathedral that lay directly in the path of the world's second atomic bomb. As the most open Japanese city, Nagasaki has also been influenced by China. Dragon dances are a big feature of the city's annual festival, which is taking place while I'm here. Each neighbourhood has to decorate a float, this one is the treasure ship, then drag it for several miles through the streets to the temple. Here, under the watchful eye of Shinto priests, their day's work really begins. Boat swinging may not yet be an Olympic sport, but if the athleticism of the swingers and the enthusiasm of the crowd is anything to go by, it soon could be. For me, it's yet another image quite at odds with my preconceived ideas of Japan. It is a highly disciplined superpower. There are men in suits, there are the biggest banks in the world. But not far below the surface is a wild and crazy nation waiting to get out and enjoy itself. We're just about to leave Hakata port in Japan for the ferry trip to Korea, another country, and I feel all those things you feel about travel at this time, a bit harassed with sort of getting bags on and off and tickets and all that sort of stuff, but also a great curiosity about the country that we're going to see. Though Japan and South Korea are a short ferry ride from each other, they've never been happy neighbours. Tomorrow morning I shall arrive in Busan. As I travel north to Seoul and beyond, I hope to find out more about this tiny country wedged in between Japan and China, our next destination. As we approach the land of the morning calm, I look out for images of Koreanness. But the busy waterfront could be any modern city at rush hour, and the concrete apartment blocks stare blankly back. The capital, Seoul, 300 miles north. A great new city ballooning out over the countryside from which it has sucked in 11 million inhabitants. These corporate office blocks belong to the secretive family conglomerates which have guided Korea through one of the world's fastest industrial revolutions. In the short space of 20 years, Samsung, Daewoo, Hyundai and others have won this old country new recognition. I walk through one of Seoul's markets in the company of a young Korean journalist, Shin Na. What do the Koreans think? Are they very proud of what they've done here in Seoul?
Yeah, they are very proud. Well, I mean, you figure they've just gotten out of a war just 20 years ago.
Who do they sort of measure themselves against, the Koreans?
They always look to Japan. They always sort of measure themselves against Japan because Japan was also leveled by war and they rose out of the ashes and became a great economic power.
Yeah.
So the Koreans naturally look to their neighbors.
Yeah.
But
still harbor a grudge?
Oh, there is still a great deal of anti-Japanese sentiment among Koreans, especially the older Koreans. Japanese pop culture, music, cartoons, things like that are still banned in Korea. Japanese cars are banned.
This anti-Japanese feeling is a surprise until you read the history books. Early this century, the Japanese occupied Korea for 36 years, pretty ruthlessly. Now the Koreans are determined to get their own back by winning the economic war. But Korean single-mindedness is showing cracks, especially among the young. Hanging here are photos of the victims of a massacre of 200 students in 1981, which has since traumatized Korean politics. There is outrage that the generals responsible for it have been granted immunity from prosecution. Police are deployed in anticipation of a march which might well end in a riot. Multi-party democracy in Korea is less than 10 years old and a very demanding child. Shin explains that these confrontations are increasingly common. Protesters and police now know each other's tactics. But the cars are doing U-turns to get out of the way, and to an outsider who hasn't a clue what's going on, it looks pretty threatening as students and union leaders take to the streets. many do you reckon here?
Here? Let's say several thousand.
Several thousand. Shouting what? What are they shouting? The shouts of massacre and massacre the massacrers are directed against the generals involved, but there's also anger at a much wider corruption in public life. This particular march was not in vain. A few months later, the generals were arrested, tried, and imprisoned. Next morning, Shin and I are doing our best to cross the city. We've been invited to a wedding. In the South Seoul Marriage Hall, every single wedding day worry is taken out of your hands by an expert staff. Everything is for hire, except the guests and the person you marry. Brides can be dressed, decorated, and delivered to the altar in rented loveliness within the hour. Shin tells me that 1 in 4 Koreans is a practicing Christian, and the ceremony laid on here is a mixture of Western religious ritual and Korean business opportunism. First, the Korean opportunism. This is what traditional everyone gives some job at the beginning. This instead of a wedding present, instead of a blanket.
Yes, it could be in addition to. It can be in addition to. This is to help them pay for the wedding.
Help pay for the wedding. Good. Thank you very much. The proud parents are nearby. The women in traditional dress and the men dressed as band leaders. Their daughter is prepared for the 2:15 ceremony in the No. 2 wedding salon. This family has opted for the simple piano accompaniment, knowing that the money saved can be spent on something more spectacular. Everyone is a bit misty-eyed by now, and the in-house video is there to record it. Outside the wedding salon, the atmosphere is less sentimental. As the men of the family count the takings, the bride is prepared for one last photo opportunity. This is all that's left of the way they used to get married. The happy couple are immortalized by the most sophisticated camera equipment in front of Korea's rented past. This is the real thing, the Pulguksa Temple, known officially as Historic Site and Scenic Beauty #1. I'm beginning at last to get the sense of what defines the Koreans. They have a history which is 5,000 years old. It's very different from anyone else's, and they're very proud of it. Despite constant invasions, they've kept their own language and their own alphabet and some pretty fine temples too. I'm looking around with Richard Saccone, an American living in Korea.
In the temple here, some of the finest detailed Buddhist sculptures in Asia can be found right here in Pulguksa.
Pulguksa stood for 1,000 years before being destroyed by Japanese invaders in the 17th century. It's now restored, and after days among the concrete canyons of Seoul, its beauty is breathtaking. But there's still a lot more to learn about Korea. You were in the military here, right?
Yes, yes.
And most people who've been in the military in a country sort of leave it and forget it very gratefully, but you obviously came back and it made an impact on you. Why was that? Why did you stay?
Originally it made a great impact because I was intrigued with all the opposites of the culture. Yeah. And then, of course, I fell in love very quickly with the generosity, hospitality, friendliness and, of the Korean people themselves, especially the country people.
Will you say that there was a country that had an inferiority complex compared to other countries?
maybe not an inferiority complex, but they do struggle to prove themselves. And because they've been so isolated, they're very proud and they think they have something to show, but they continuously struggle to show it.
Today, when we leave Seoul, we shall encounter our first serious obstacle to progress around the Pacific Rim. It's called North Korea, and no matter how nicely you ask, North Korea, there is only one way to approach it. Well, this is the very start of a tour into what is probably one of the most militarized borders anywhere on Earth, so special restrictions do prevail. And first of all, I have to sign a visitor's declaration, which says roughly the visit to the joint security area will entail entry into a hostile area and possibility of injury or death as a direct result of enemy action, blah, 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 blah. Although incidents are not anticipated, the United Nations, the United States of America and the Republic of Korea cannot guarantee the safety of visitors and may not be held accountable in the event of a hostile enemy act. So I just have to sign this, let them off the hook, and we can go on with the tour, which should be happening very soon. In front of them all is the motto of the 506th Infantry, some of the 37,000 American troops still stationed in Korea. The war they fight now is a propaganda war.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Freedom House.
Today's GIs double as guides, taking groups of foreign tourists, no South Koreans are allowed, right up to the border itself, and right back in time. Here, the Cold War is still frozen solid. Out there is the enemy.
Once again, you are still under close observation, so we ask that you refrain from making any hand and arm gestures towards that side. Just off to your immediate front is the North Korean Administrative Building. Ladies and gentlemen, it was built on a man-made hill to ensure its dimensions are 1 meter higher and wider than the building you are now standing on.
We're in a world of minefields and tank traps, B-52 bombers, attack helicopters, and quick reaction forces, ready for combat in 90 seconds flat.
And come back out firing. Momentarily, we'll be going to the vicinity of the MAC building, so you may begin taking photographs at this time.
From the way they talk, you'd think the Korean War had ended yesterday. In fact, it's never officially ended. In this temporary hut, actually built over the border itself, MAC, the Military Armistice Commission, has been trying to turn a ceasefire into a peace for 43 years.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the MAC building. The MAC building is where the 4 types of meetings is central to the supervision of the ceasefire agreement held. All of the meetings last 3 to 4 hours. There's one on record that lasts 11 hours. Everything said in this building is translated to 3 languages: English, Korean, and Chinese.
Beneath all the military speak, the undeniable fact remains that these are the world's least successful peace talks. Most of the time seems to have been spent discussing the placing of the microphones or the height of the tables.
If our flags are here, you can see I stand on a 2-tier base while they're standing on 3. They're both equal in height.
But as our guide reminds us, the only thing that matters is the line running down the middle of the hut, and that's not budged an inch.
South Korea. Therefore, those of you on my left, welcome to Communist North Korea, while those of you to my right are relatively safe from the Republic. If you wish to make a crossing into North Korea, please do so at that end of the table. And when those of you in North Korea wish to return back to the Republic, also please do so at that end of the table. If you have any questions, I'll be located to the southern end of the door. Rock soldier.
Busy in North Korea. Try and get I've been around a bit, but I've never known a more bizarre way to enter a new country. Crossing the frontier has been reduced to something halfway between a parlour game and a visit to the House of Horrors. Nearly there. Inches to go. North Korea. It's a chance for all of us from the lands of the free to experience a frisson of communism, a hint of what might have been, a whiff of the old enemy. As the tour rolls remorselessly on, my spirits remorselessly sink. No one seems to care if nothing happens here. The military get their training, the South Koreans get their border looked after, and those like me who believe in human contact get depressed.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to United Nations Command checkpoint number 3. Look out to your far right on the hill. You may see what looks like a dirt road forming a fish hook. This is the northernmost border of the DMZ. It's approximately 2,000 meters from where you are.
So it goes on. Our propaganda points out their propaganda. Signs read anti-American or Yankee go home.
Our leader is best. Just out to the front of that very large hill, you see another North Korean guard post. Once again, you're still under close observation, so we ask that you refrain from making any hand and arm gestures towards that side.
I'm trying to work out exactly what sort of hand or arm gesture might start a war. Can I scratch my ear? Pick my nose? Our guide is hardly setting an example as he jabs his arm towards the Bridge of No Return, where in 1968 American sailors walked to freedom after a year in communist captivity. Well, this is it. This is the end of the road. We can't go any further into Korea without the risk of being either shot or arrested. It comes as a bit of a shock to find such a heavily fortified, potentially lethal border in the middle of the open, outgoing Pacific Rim area. But I suppose the immeasurable sadness of a place like this is that it's not a border between two rival countries. It's a border that separates one country from itself. As the flags come down, so do my chances of passing unhampered around the Pacific Rim. North Korea may be a brick wall, but it's not one on which I'm prepared to bang my head. I'll leave that to somebody else. I've got to get to China.
On the next Full Circle with Michael Palin.
Feeling of apprehension about travelling in China, a vague whiff of difficulty and discomfort.
Venturing deep into China.
Today Taishan, tomorrow the world.
Trying to fit in wherever he goes. Then a savage beating in the streets of Guangdong. Chapter 3 of Full Circle with Michael Palin. Don't get left behind.
Cowboy, soldier, explorer, scientist, author,
of this
and
program
more.
was made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and by annual financial support from viewers like you.
To order this episode of Full Circle with Michael Palin on video cassette, call PBS Home Video at 1-800-828-4PBS.
This is PBS.
Heads Up, something new on PBS.
I can remember one of the oddest meals, which was in Mexico City at a restaurant which specialized in pre-Columbian specialities. So this was food that was eaten before Columbus came across from Europe. And what they used to eat mainly were insects. I mean, the specialities like maggots.
It's good grub.
Grasshoppers' eggs, mosquito larvae. Very tasty. I couldn't actually tell mosquito larvae from grasshoppers' eggs, but I think it's just a question of time. All these little crunchy morsels that look pretty strange. That was just a starter, and then the main course was armadillo with beans. And I remember beaks. They're keen on beaks there. Bird beaks. That was a very, very strange meal indeed. Sort of meal they dare you to eat.
Here's another Tip Top TV tip for you and your kids. Talk about what you watched. When the show is over, talk about it with your kids. Find out what they liked, what they didn't, and why. PBS, you want the best for your kids, don't you?